Hi, my name is Laurie and welcome to another edition of DR Boxing Weekly. On DR Boxing Weekly, myself and guests preview, review and discuss all the relevant topics in discussion in the boxing world. Joining me today, to my left, Nick's in the house. What you say?
Wagwan. I'm here.
To my right, James, aka the
AJ Simp
AJ
back
Simp.
in action, or the Zhang Simp now apparently.
Yep.
Just a simp.
Okay, so with the introductions and pleasantries out the way, let me just review what we're going to do this week. First thing we're going to talk about the big fight last week. Then we'll preview the big fight this week. And there's another big fight, a domestic one we need to talk about. And then we'll finish up by looking at some of the regular boxing news and some of the stuff making headlines. Okay then, without any further ado, our first item of business today is to look back at the big fight last week at the Copper Box Arena in East London, where Joyce the Juggernaut was taking on Zhang the Big Bang from China. And I've got to say, massive upset. Some people, like myself, saying probably the upset of the year.
Some people called it. Some people could see it coming from a mile away, you know.
Got shout out to my boy James, he called it when, Zhang, what can I say, man? Goes to 25-1-1 with that win over Joyce. Joyce slips to 15-1. Now, I'm pretty sure the panel watched the fight back, because I know you like that. I know you guys, you do your due diligence. So let's start with James, because he got it right.
Let's start with it. I mean, obviously, like you said, when you first watch it in the heat of the moment, you're not really analysing it to your full ability because the emotions are involved. A couple of big shots go in and you're getting excited. Is he going to end it here? But the more I watched it back, the more composed I saw that Zhang was. That was what really impressed me about him. The ability to sit in the pocket, and at times it may have been perceived earlier on in the heat of the moment that he was gassing out, but he was just chill. There was not a single point in that fight where I thought Joyce put him under any danger. And I said it early on, when he went in that first round, he earned the respect of Joyce with his power. Joyce did not earn his respect once in that fight. There was not one time he rocked him. There was not one time Zhang looked to be under any pressure, looked to be nervous, looked to be rushing his shots. Third, fourth round, I thought he maybe took his foot off the gas a little bit, allowed Joyce to have a little bit more success. I know you guys said earlier that you maybe gave Joyce that round.
I gave him the third round, but it's what I call a work rate round. But he just threw more punches. He didn't. Yeah. He wasn't particularly effective.
And I had that as a 10-10 round personally, but I think that was I did, and I think that was Zhang really just preserving his energy a bit, maybe even suckering Joyce in a little bit more, and then fourth, fifth round again, just bullied him.
Before I go to Nick, unbelievably, one of the judges actually had Joyce up ahead in that fight.
Yeah, I cannot believe that.
That definitely needs to be investigated by somebody. Because let's just go back and check all that rep scorecards for any British fighters. But I agree with James. It was, we knew that the weakness was the gas tank for Zhang. And so the game plan, which I can't get away from, I keep mentioning it, the game plan should have been to pressure him and try and tire him out. Even if you were sitting on him, even if it was dirty tactics, even if you literally cuddled him into being tired, leaned on him into being tired, anything, work rate round that he won, keep getting off the work rate. We're going to talk about Garcia and Tank Davis in a second, but similar type of thing, we'll need to see work rate to keep the big puncher away. And the tactics from Joyce were tailor-made for Zhang to lose that, for Zhang to win that fight and for himself to lose it. I think that was a big mistake from himself and his team, the way they went about it, and obviously he's paid the price.
James, in the post-fight interview in the ring, Joyce said something that was quite revealing. He said, maybe I needed some more southpaw sparring. I think he might even use the word training, but that's what he meant.
Yeah.
It looked to me that if he did do any training with southpaws, it must have been sparse, because he just couldn't get out of the way of Zhang's left hand.
Yeah, and they must have been quite a few notches below the quality of Zhang. But to be honest, I see that as an excuse. First of all, I don't really like it when a fighter comes out after the fight and they start throwing excuses around. And usually what they'll do, they'll come and say, look, I'm not making any excuses. The better fighter won. And then proceed to label about 3 or 4 excuses. But my shoulder was hurting, my knuckle, I sneezed 3 times when I woke up in the morning. But He's 37 years old. He should have had enough experiences with southpaws, either in the gym or out the gym, to deal with Zhang. And yeah, I don't know who he brought in for his training camp to spar, but yeah, clearly we're not up to the standard.
You make an excellent point. Sorry, you make an excellent point there, because if you look at Joyce's career, that's the one thing people have always said. He's so easy to hit. So maybe it wasn't the fact that, or maybe he had enough sparring partners at southpaw. It's just that this guy just doesn't move his head. He's too easy to hit. Nick?
That's exactly what I was just about to say. At the end of the day, we saw even on the night, the broadcaster was showing that his main weakness is getting hit in the face repeatedly in the early rounds, whether that's from southpaw fighters, orthodox fighters, it really doesn't matter. That's a weakness of his game. It's the same weakness over and over again. And like I say, that's what makes him good but not great, is the inability to iterate and change his approach even slightly in the fight. And part of being a good fighter is not just hitting hard, but being able to find a solution. There's an intellectual side of boxing, to be able to find a solution when you're in the ring, and he wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Nick, question for you. Joe Joyce. Now let's cut to the chase. It was a bad loss, but can he bounce back?
Define bounce back. This was a final eliminator for a world title. Does it look like he'll be world title level? Maybe not. Not again.
Stand like Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is very quick to write him off.
That's my guy, man. No, it's not that. It's the one pace, one note part of his boxing. If you look at the only person of the top four that's that one-dimensional is probably Wilder. I'd say Usyk, Fury, AJ, they are all a little bit more versatile. They can try different things. Whether AJ has an aesthetic style or not, he can box in different ways. Joyce is very, very one note, and you're going to need something a little bit more to go to that top level. He can bounce back and be another borderline gatekeeper. He can now take maybe that position that we saw Zhang as before the fight, of that gatekeeper to the top level.
So basically what you're saying, you don't see him going on to become a world champion?
Not with the current crop of fighters that are sitting at the top. We already spoke before in previous weeks about if there's an undisputed fight, which looks unlikely, and the belts get spread around, then there's a pathway there through a vacant title, but not dethroning anyone that's on the top at the moment.
Who would you like to see him in with next? If you're his manager or his brains trust, who would you try and get for Joe Joyce next time out?
I think, it depends on whether he wants money fights or world title fights or whatever. If he goes for well-known people like we keep bringing up Dylan White, but again, he's a big name in the British boxing scene. Does he go that route?
He's just a gimme fight for everyone, because he's looking very beatable right now, and he's a big name, and he's turning up at every fight trying to sign up with everyone.
That's Dylan,
Dylan White, yeah,
100%. He's a name but he's established that for himself with the past. He can still generate a lot of money. I don't know that he goes up. He's going to probably have to take a step downwards, realistically. Same thing I said about AJ, but there you go.
James, can the Juggernaut bounce back? Can he get the Juggernaut back on track? And if so, who against?
Again, that's what I mean. I think Dillian White is maybe the only one that makes sense. Maybe Anthony Joshua, if he doesn't have another fight. But for me, Anthony Joshua taking that fight doesn't make any sense to me, because if he beats him, it's the guy that just got battered by Zhang. If he beats him in a less convincing manner, well, then that pushes his stock even further down. Dillian White, I think, is a gettable fight for him. It's a big name. Otherwise, does he really have a stake of getting rid of a Usyk or a Fury? Not after that Zhang fight. Like I said, he's 37 years old, so there's not a lot of time for him to really...
A rematch with Zhang?
But he hasn't earned a rematch with Zhang. Zhang has earned bigger fights. Clause. Okay, but I don't. Again, the way he was battered with that, no one cares. First of all,
no, well, you say that, but if he was to go in and beat Zhang again, then it's back on again, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's back on again, and then what? Are they stuck in a trilogy? They're both aging fighters, and they want to move on with their career. Zhang does not want to be stuck with it. I'm sure Zhang will do it, and I'm sure if Zhang goes in there, he'll probably batter him again, probably. But
let's talk about that for a second. Then Zhang, the winner. Who would you like to see him fight next? I mean, he is, by winning that fight on Saturday, he is now the interim WBO champion, which means he'll be mandatory for Usyk next. Is that a fight you'd like to see?
I think that is a fight I'd like to see. I think the AJ one makes sense money-wise for him. I think after his victory against Joyce, I think the AJ fight would sell better than the Franklin fight. They'll probably be able to do a stadium for that, as it will be billed as like the title eliminator. Although for him personally, I would want to see him either against Fury or against Usyk. I think maybe I think he's got a better chance against Fury than he does Usyk. Usyk, I see him getting clean the floor with. He's too quick, too slick. He'll set up traps for him that he won't be able to deal with. But yeah, I would like to see that.
Stylistically, I'd like to see Zhang up against Fury. I like seeing Fury up against people that are as close to as big and strong as he is, because he's just such a giant guy. Stylistically, I think that's more appealing, but I don't care. You know, when I like to see people that deserve world title shots get world title shots, even if they're a massive underdog. For a lot of boxers, having a shot at a world title, having a world title fight, maybe it's the height of their career, even if they don't win it. And when you see people like him, they're talented and working hard, and he's 39, is he?
39. Actually, he'll be 40 next week.
You know, there you go. So he's going to be 40 years old. He deserves, before he retires, some type of shot at a world title after cleaning up Joyce the way that he did.
I agree. I'd like to see him fight someone like Usyk. I mean, as we said, he won the WBO interim title, which makes him mandatory for the full title. Whether Usyk will fight him, I don't know. But one thing I would say about Zhang, he's very big in China, and I don't just mean because he's 6'6" and approaching 20 stone. I think there's something like 18 million in China watched his fight on Saturday, and that was just in his province. That's not, you know, all of China apparently. So he's big news in China. Imagine him and Usyk in China, because Usyk, we know, is a road warrior.
Yeah.
Have gloves, will travel. So you never know, he might take that fight. The money would be big, I'm sure. So, yeah, but interested to see how that plays out. That was that one. Moving on then to this weekend. Massive fight taking place. Many people are calling this the biggest fight of the year so far. Saturday night over on the west coast of the United States of America, the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. Gervonta Davis, 5 times world champion in 3 different weight classes, from Baltimore, Maryland, taking on King Ryan Garcia of Victorville, California, this Saturday night for the WBA World Lightweight title. Right, let's start with my man here, James.
Well,
he's a big King Ryan fan.
I love Ryan Garcia, man. He's got the look for it, all right? He's got the physique. He's got the lightning quick hand speed. He's got the charisma. He's got it all to put boxing back on the map where it should be. Put it in the creme de la creme, all right? Against Davis, let's be real here. It's a tale of two styles. Is Davis going to be able to get in close? Is he going to be able to rough him up? Is he going to be able to use his power? Or is Ryan Garcia going to be able to dance around, keep him on the outside, slap him with that check hook? I think his hand speed is phenomenal. I don't think he has the power of Davis. I think Davis is more an accurate striker. And we've already seen Ryan Garcia get dropped. You know, he has a tendency to drop his hands and lose focus with it. He's in danger. Don't get me wrong, he's in danger. But I feel this could be a coming-of-age fight for him. He asked for the fight, Ryan Garcia. Let's make no two ways about it. He's the one that said, I want this fight now. There's arguments, is it 1 or 2 fights too soon? Is he seasoned enough at the top level? Potentially not. We're going to find out. But the fact that he showed the cojones to ask for the fight, to demand for that fight now, to earn respect, because I think he gets disrespected. I've heard it from you guys. Some
people would say, does he deserve this fight?
Exactly my point. He gets disrespected because he's got a big Instagram follower, because he's flashy, because he's good looking, because he gets a lot more money than maybe people that deserve more money or more opportunities because of what he's done outside the ring. People discredit what he has done inside the ring and the balls it's taken him to get this far in his career and all the amateur fights.
Right, hold your fire there, because I know you've got a lot to say about, especially about King Ryan Garcia. Nick, we're going to get into the specifics soon, but your overall thoughts on the fight itself.
Yeah, James is everything wrong with the sport of boxing. You know, Tank is way more talented. You know, Ryan Garcia to me just reminds me of Amir Khan. Lightning fast, average chin when it gets touched. You know, flashy, maybe more flashy than he deserves. And you're doing quotation marks, talking about deserves and what he's done in the sport and all the rest of it. But then when we can't get certain big fights because they're demanding huge, ridiculous money, because they do make so much money outside of boxing from Instagram and all the rest of it, it can detract from.
Okay, but he hasn't. No, he demanded for the fight.
No.
He demanded it.
Let me finish talking. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what it is, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Man are getting fights off of Instagram and off of TikTok and all the rest of it. And I don't dislike Ryan Garcia. I'm happy for him to make whatever money he's going to make and be successful and all the rest of it. But he is not in that, you know, there's like 4 people that he's not in the upper echelons. He's not in the elite of that, you know. And it's fine anyway. We'll put that to bed on Saturday night. You know what I mean? It's you know, we're going to come in here next week and we'll do a roundup, and you know,
I must admit, I do tend to agree with a lot of what Nick says, and I'll explain later. But before we do that, let's go into some specifics. Let's go a little bit of tailor the tape. So Tank Davis, he's the champion. He's the favourite. He's 28 years old. 28 fights, 28 wins, 26 by knockout, no draws, no losses. He's 5'6", 67.5 inch reach, and he's southpaw. Ryan Garcia, 23 years, I think actually he's 24 now. 23 wins, 19 by KO, no draws, no losses, 5'10". 70 each inch, so he's got a couple of inches advantage there, and he's orthodox. If we look at their notable fights, now this starts to tell its own story. Now, Tank Davis, his resume is
speaks
complete.
for itself.
Yeah, his last fight, Hector Garcia, was a very good fighter himself, former world champion. Beat him, KO 11 rounds. Rolly Romero, former world champion, KO 6. Isaac Cruz, real tough guy, not many people queuing up to fight him. Won a tough fight on points. He damaged his hand in that fight, came through, won on points. Mario Barros, he actually stepped up in weight to light welterweight, won that TKO. Leo Santa Cruz, remember that devastating knockout. Yuriokis Gamboa, former Cuban amateur star, KO'd him. Liam Walsh, now that was back in 2017, I remember that fight, because that took place over here. Liam Walsh, very good fighter at that time. Tank came over here to defend his title. A lot of people said that might be close. Blew him away. Jose Pedraza. Now, in hindsight, that is a very, very good win, because Pedraza, even since losing to Tank, has gone on to do good things. If you compare that with Ryan Garcia, the only notable fights you can really say for him are his last fight, Javier Fortuna. He was a faded Javier Fortuna as well. He won by KO. And Luke Campbell, a few years back. That was a good win, I admit that, against Luke Campbell. He actually got off the floor, knocked out Luke Campbell. But then Luke Campbell was coming off a loss or two, was coming towards the end of his career.
But I think that's the main thing everyone thinks about is the Campbell one, because he got fiddled a bit by Luke Campbell. So people look at that and say, is he going to be able to make the step up? Of course. Gervonta Davis, his resume, his record, he's been at the top. He's been more seasoned at the top. He's fought the tougher competitors. He deserves to be the favourite. He deserves to get all the acclaim he has. He deserves people like you saying he's the more talented fighter, he's the more skilled fighter. But he's still 4 years senior to Ryan Garcia. We don't know what Ryan Garcia could turn into. This could be the coming of age fight. You know, everyone needs that one fight.
What gives you that confidence? What do you see in that fight to make you think specifically Ryan Garcia is going to win? Because to be fair to you, and you've been a good caller of fights, I've got to say that. You got Saturdays right. I think even before that, you got a couple right, didn't you? When you analyse those two combatants, what do you see in Ryan Garcia, or even what do you see in Tank to make you think, actually, I think Ryan Garcia's got his number?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's going to blow him out of the water. I think it's going to be a very exciting fight. I think both men are going to have their moments in the fight. They're both very talented, and either of them could put the other one out. But it comes down to who's going to be able to implement their game plan more. Ryan Garcia has the height. He has the reach. He has the ability to stick and move. Davis, I mean, it has to be said, sometimes he isn't the most active of fighter. Sometimes he waits for that killer shot, and he kind of moonwalks around the wing.
He does give rounds up.
Yeah, and he looks for the perfect moment to score the knockout. With Garcia, if he can keep him at bay, if he can dance around, if he can slap him with the check hook whenever he tries to come in. I mean, his footwork's not amazing. So if you press him,
he's quite straight up. He's got his chin out there.
He does, yeah. If you press him, like I said, and he doesn't have the best hand discipline, sometimes he can drop it and he can get caught, as you saw in the Campbell fight. I think that there's obviously a chance for that to happen, but I also think you never know what's going to happen in the biggest fight of your career. You could have the biggest performance of your career. Anything can happen, and he has all the physical abilities.
So you're hoping against hope, basically. Nick?
What?
Other than hand speed, I mean, movement, better feet. I think Davis will walk him down. Garcia gets walked down quite a lot. He fights off the back foot because he has to. He doesn't look particularly comfortable. His hands are by his side. His chin is in the air. Doesn't get low. If Tank Davis can walk him down slowly, use head movement, use the size advantage, use the lack of a size advantage kind of to his advantage, if that makes sense, and get low, hit a couple of body shots. Ryan just does not have enough punch resistance, so I think I even said that's a fight where I would expect Tank to win by knockout, but I would also expect maybe Ryan to be up on the cards at the time that the fight stops, because he's going to do some of the flashier, more attractive work that's going to get a lot of the fans on his side and get the judges on his side. But once he gets hit with one, maybe two punches, his punch resistance isn't great, and even when he does get up from being rocked, he still looks quite shaky and takes him a little bit of time to recompose himself. And then Tank's he's got one of the best kind of finishes in the division, so
devastating. But can I just ask you guys a question? Who do you think needs this fight more? Who's more hungry for it?
Needs it. Who needs it more and who's more hungry for it are two different things.
No, I think they're one of the same.
Not always, not necessarily.
I think Ryan needs it more.
Ryan needs it more.
Ryan needs it more.
Yeah.
Could he be going into that with more hunger, more determination to win? Look, if Ryan Garcia loses it, then everything everyone said about him his entire career is completely vindicated. He is overhyped. Can he cut it at the top level? Can he go as high as people are saying?
But then again, if you're Gervonta Davis, a lot of people see him as the face of boxing. If you lose to Ryan Garcia, a lot of people say he's inexperienced, not that skilled, although he's got fast hands and power. It would be seen as quite a bad loss for Gervonta Davis.
And it screws up a lot of the other fights that he'll want against the Haney's and all the other guys as well.
Point.
Yeah, but Garcia also wants these big fights.
Yeah, but Garcia's you're not as hungry when you're not a champion.
No,
I'm
not
not concerned about Ryan Garcia's lack of experience at the top level.
Absolutely I am. Yeah.
His two biggest fights really are the Luke Campbell one and the Javier Fortuna. I don't think those two fights, with respect, prepare you for a guy like Tank.
No, I don't think they do either.
Whereas if you look at Tank's experience, he's fought a multitude of fighters, different weight classes, won world championships in 3 different weight classes. He's a 5-time world champion. He's very powerful, he's explosive, he's experienced, he's got very good skills, gotta say, man. He's not just like a puncher. The guy can box.
The guy has got all. If you're talking physical advantages, Ryan Garcia. If you're talking mental experience, knowledge, ring craftsmanship, obviously all of that is in Gervonta Davis's favor. I take you back to Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, who had all the experience going into that fight, who had all the advantages going into that fight, but who was more hungry for it, who wanted it more. So anything can happen, and I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that Gervonta Davis isn't hungry for it. He doesn't want it. I'm just saying.
No,
I
he
think
wants
there
it
is
bad.
a good.
So much so that they're prepared to bet their purses on it. Let's talk about that for a bit. You've seen the Instagram stuff.
It's
which
rubbish,
is typical
mate.
Ryan Garcia. Nick, I'm going to ask you first. I think I know what you're going to say, and I do agree with you.
Yeah, it's not legally binding.
Winner takes all.
Yeah, it's not legally binding. No one.
Yeah.
There's too many people whose work goes into this for anyone to allow that to actually happen. Even if both fighters genuinely wanted it to happen, it's not legally. But they have contracts in place anyway that negate all of that.
One of them could go in there on Saturday, and this has happened before to other fighters. I saw it a few months ago. Go in there, throw a punch, twist, sprain his ankle, and get stopped. So that's never going to happen. Obviously, it was to sell the fight. It seems to have worked. There's a lot of interest around that fight, and things like this help to sell it.
Yeah, and I think it's also a way of trying to get into the other person's head and raise the stake. If you say, "Oh, let's bet everything, let's bet all our entire purse on this fight," then you're basically playing a big game of chicken in front of the media. The other person can't sit there and squabble and back out, because then they look like a coward, but then they're also thinking, sure, I don't want to bet all of this, I don't want to look like an idiot. So I think it's mental games, it's mind games, but at the end of the day, it's a complete load of waffle. It's just
Agreed.
It's fugazi,
Well
doesn't
said.
exist.
The rehydration clause that's as part of this fight now, that is so that Ryan Garcia, who is the bigger man, let's face it, he's taller, rangier, taller, would normally weigh heavier than Tank, walks around a bit heavier than Tank. He's been told he can't rehydrate more than 10 pounds on the day of the fight. Now, my view on this is that Ryan Garcia has done a lot of complaining about it. He's mentioned it a lot. But to me, you signed the fight, you wanted the fight, you signed it. So, to me, it nullifies a lot of what you're saying. Let's start with Nick. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, £10. These guys are lightweight fighters. £10 is it's a lot of weight, so I don't think I think it's you can make an argument about it. I think it's fair. I think, if I was fighting someone a lot bigger than me, and he's bigger than everyone else in the division as well. It's not that Ryan is the standard size. It's more that Tank is closest to the standard size and Ryan's almost oversized for that weight class. So I do think it's fair.
No, but you want to suck everything out of him. Look, this isn't just because it's Ryan Garcia. Of course, once you sign the contract, you've agreed to everything. You've agreed to it. And he probably did that just so he could get the fight. But I don't think rehydration clauses, especially ones as strict to 10 pounds, should be a thing. At the end of the day, you're a fighter.
A lot of weight.
No, it's not that much, man. Trust me. When you're sucking that much fluids and everything, all these fighters, when they step on the scale, they're sucking all the fluids out of them. A lot of them with these crazy weight cuts, they're literally draining themselves in hot baths. In UFC, where there's less weight classes than boxing, people are dying because they're trying to dehydrate themselves this much to make it, which is another issue in and of itself.
Why don't they fight at the weight class? Why don't they fight at the weight class?
I'll tell you why they don't do it, because they're trying to weight bully people.
Of course they're trying to weight bully, but at the end of the day, you're a professional fighter. If you make the weight on the scale, that should be enough. We
spoke about this last week with Sebastian Fundora. That's what he tries to do. This man should be fighting at least two weight classes above the weight he fights. 6'6", he's fighting 154 pounds. You know what I mean? I know he's very slim, but even so, you think to yourself, come on, bro, you should really be at least a super middleweight, if not a light heavyweight. And he spent his whole entire career. He's only 25, boiling himself down. It's going to start to affect him as he gets older. I'm with Nick on that one. Sorry to say, Nick, James, but you sign the contract.
Oh, no. Once you sign the contract, you can't complain. Once you've signed it and you've agreed to it, that's it. I completely agree with that. I just don't really understand it personally.
Yeah. You have to talk to Ryan about moving up a weight class. Tank's moved up a weight class.
I'm not saying that's a different argument. I'm not Ryan Garcia's legal counsel here. What's going on? I thought the guy was going to win the fight.
Nah, listen, I'm here to talk. I'm here to give my opinion. I've given it.
I love Gervonta Davis as well, man. I wish the both of them the best of luck. I hope they come out of it on the other side.
Sounds like we're getting around to prediction time. Nick, let's start with you. I think I know what you're going to say. You've alluded to it already.
I think
Tank. Give me something to go on.
Yeah, I think Davis is. I just can't help looking at him and seeing Amir Khan, genuinely. So but I'm trying to give him more. Garcia, yeah. So I'm trying to give him some credit. I'm trying to think, how long can he stay out of range? How long can he dance around? I might go Tank round 8 or 9. I'll give Garcia that credit, looking at the time that Tank has stopped other fighters in the past, and try and kind of slot Garcia in there, because I do think he'll pick up a lot of the earlier rounds with the jabbing and the moving, and then I just think it's a time of him finding his distance. And yeah, I think rounds 8, 9, Tank Davis knockout.
Wow. Well, I agree with you. He's like Amir Khan, and I think a prime handshakeless Amir Khan actually beats Gervonta Davis. So I got to agree with you on that. No, actually, that's cap. But no, I think, like I said, I think if he keeps to his game plan, it all depends. Ryan Garcia is going to do one or two things. He's either going to go in there, try to prove he's some tough guy, and try and go for a tear up, play into Davis's game, try and keep it close. At that point, he probably gets dropped. He gets hurt. If he can play it at his game, if he can use his reach, if he can keep the fight on the outside, if he can slap him with that check hook, I think eventually he wears him down. Davis starts to panic and he knocks him out. But I think both men will actually get dropped in this fight, if I'm honest. I think it's going to be a really exciting fight.
Well, you have to say, previously Tank's shown a really good chin.
Yeah.
I've never seen him on the floor.
But he hasn't faced that devastating check hook, so...
We know that Ryan can punch, definitely. For me, though, I've got to say Gervonta Davis all the way. I just can't see him not winning this fight. He holds all the advantages in terms of skills, experience, ring generalship, and of course, I believe he's got the greatest power of the two.
That's
and he's proven it.
I think he's got the greater accuracy as well with his punches, which is the key.
And the way I think the fight will play out is similar to Nick. I think maybe some of the early rounds, Ryan will win on youthful enthusiasm and exuberance. He'll come out lively, he'll be animated, he'll be popping the jab and the 1-2s are looking for the left hook. He might even win a few rounds, but I think Tank will
if he drops him early as well, then it's a completely different fight.
It's not out of the realms of possibility, but I just think that Tank is just more seasoned, more experienced.
He's had a lot
harder,
of these nights.
Tougher. I just think, he's built for this, man.
That's fair. I mean, he's the favourite for a reason.
These world title nights, he's had a lot of these nights as well, Ryan's never
I think the fight will be over by about round 7, 8. 8 or less.
I think 8. I think around 10.
Yeah.
Last year.
Well, for knockout?
Yeah.
For Garcia?
Yeah.
Interesting. So there you have it. James gone for Ryan Garcia. Don't write James off, because he's good at predictions.
Don't change it last minute like last time either. Stick to it because you're getting loads of credit for calling the Jacques, but he didn't call it until the day. He just changed it. I don't know what you read. I don't know who typed you on Twitter or what you read. But he changed it on the day.
I spoke to Zhang personally. We had a little conversation. I read into his eyes. I could see he was going to knock him out.
Nick, just to reiterate, who you're going heavily for Tank?
Tank Davis, round 9 KO.
Round 9 KO. So you've actually gone around further than me. But yeah, I think for me, once Tank starts to get the range, I think it's all over.
And Shane's not here, so someone's got to say Ryan Garcia's getting memed, bruv.
Yeah,
I'd say that for Shane.
Shane.
Yeah, he's gone running after I took his money on the weekend. He's gone running because he doesn't want to lose anymore. That's what's happened.
Big up Shane. He couldn't be with us today. He's actually flying out tomorrow morning. So big Shane up. But I do know through having spoken to Shane several times, he heavily favours Gervonta Davis in this fight. But one thing I would say, it's going to be a great occasion. For sure. Great fight while it lasts. Looking forward to it very much so. Also on that night, a domestic world title fight, IBF World Title Super Featherweight Championship. Joe Cordina of Cardiff, Wales, aka the Welsh Wizard. He takes on Shavkat Rakhimov, I think is correct pronunciation, of Tajikistan. As I said, that's going to be in Cardiff. So Joe Cordina had previously won this title when he knocked out a Japanese guy, I think it's Kenichi Ogawa, last year. But then he subsequently developed a hand injury, so he wasn't able to defend against Rakhimov. In the meantime, Rakhimov... So they stripped Cordina, and Rakhimov ended up fighting Britain's Zelfa Barrett, who's the cousin of, or the nephew of Pat Barrett. Rakhimov stopped Zelfa Barrett, I think it's in 9 rounds, and won the vacant title. So he's defending against Cordina. Now this is going to be a very good fight.
Both undefeated fighters as well.
And he also got dropped in that fight, and he came back. Rakhimov, came back to stop him, which is very impressive. Yeah,
Rakhimov is what is he? 28, southpaw. I think he's had 18 fights, 17 wins.
17
one
wins.
Draw. The draw was against Jojo Diaz. You may remember Jojo Diaz,
and 14 knockouts as
14 knockouts. And he's got that style in it, that sort of relentless come forward style, throws a lot of punches. So it'll be aesthetically, it'll be a good fight because Cordina, as I alluded to call him the Welsh Wizard, very skillful, good footwork, good hand speed, looks good, kind of guy that you would like, actually. Very good amateur, won a Commonwealth Games silver medal. I think he was European champion as an amateur, went to the Olympics. Good boxer, can punch as well.
Yep.
Fighting at home in front of his own people. Could be good.
It's going to be tough. I mean, he's fighting somebody that's going to come forward and put the pressure on him. You know, Joe's a really good technical boxer. Like you say, he can punch, he can finish, but he's probably more technical than he is a big puncher, which you'd expect at that type of weight division. But he normally sets the pace. He normally, dictates the ring and takes control of the fight. And he's going to be up against someone where it's probably going to be his hardest fight to date. And he's going to be up against someone who also does that. So stylistically, I think it's going to be really tough. But I'm going to go the home fighter. I edge it to Joe Cordina.
Yeah, same here. I know Rakhimov is dangerous. He's in with a puncher's chance, as is anyone. But like you said, Cordina, too slick, too technical for me. We saw Rakhimov got dropped in his last fight. Cordina for me, I think.
Will the hands hold out though, especially in a attritional fight like this is likely to be?
That's interesting. Maybe he goes to Amir Khan, get some advice on how to shake some hands, fix them up. But you never know. You never know how someone's going to respond to an injury. Yeah. That's the interesting thing. But like you said, he was never really famed for his devastating knockout power as his skills. Floyd Mayweather notoriously had very bad hand injuries, and he still managed to outpoint people and outclass them. So I think you see a similar thing.
Okay then, for me, I think it's a very close fight. It could go either way. I might even lean towards Rakhimov, just the fact that Cordina's been out of the ring for a while, he's had hand problems. I think if he doesn't get Rakhimov out of there, which is going to be difficult because Rakhimov is tough And Cordina, even though he had that big knockout against Ogawa, he's not known as a big puncher. I think for him to come back after being out of the ring so long, his first fight against a hard guy like this.
And a champion as well. As they say, the old quote.
Could be one of those, where Cordina might get it, but we'll be on this show next week saying, really, Rakhimov got robbed. I could see that as well. So.
I do think Joe will have to fight pretty much a perfect fight in terms of his style to get it over the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, home advantage.
He's got the skills to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just
if he was a little bit more
querying
active.
the length of time out the ring and the hand injury, which brings Rakhimov very much into the equation. But we'll see how it plays out. Right. Okay, then. That's that. Should be a very good night of boxing. Let's move on to some news that's doing the rounds. Now, unless you've been under a rock as a boxing fan for the past couple of days, then you would have heard about the proposed heavyweight tournament in Saudi Arabia. 2 big fights on one bill. Fury versus Usyk, and the undercard, unbelievable, AJ versus Wilder. Now they're talking about 400 million to get this on, nearly $500 million. So it can only take place in somewhere like Saudi Arabia. They're looking at December. James, what do you think?
I think if this is going to work, I think they have to take a book out of Vince McMahon or Paul Levesque's WWE playbook, what they did with WrestleMania, where they did a Saturday and a Sunday. They do all the promotion together. You promote the same event and you put it all under the same banner, but you have 2 separate nights. Saturday, Anthony Joshua versus Wilder.
No, but they've already said they were going to do it on the same day.
But on the same day, I don't know if I can see Anthony Joshua or Wilder being happy to be an undercard fighter to Fury or Usyk.
I think Wilder
especially when that
to get the money, they'll do it.
arguably draws more money and eyeballs than Fury versus Usyk.
Good point.
Because they're both bigger names than Fury. Well, Fury's probably bigger than Wilder, but
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
I see where you're coming from. In terms of sheer attraction, that fight appeals to me more. Yeah. However, you've got to say
it's a more exciting
Fury
fight,
and
but one of them's
Usyk
for all
would
the
be
belts.
1 and 2 in pretty much everyone's book.
The budget for that Saudi Arabia's got is irrelevant because Fury will want 80% for himself and split the rest between everybody else. I think that Fury is the least likely to do this type of thing because he doesn't like to commit himself to his future. He doesn't like to commit himself too far in advance, and this would presumably be, if you win, you fight the winner of this fight, and then he will kind of run out of excuses. I do think there's maybe, I don't know if there's a mental health element there, but he doesn't like to commit himself too far ahead of time. He likes things to be very much on his own terms, and I don't know how him and AJ specifically, so I'm not just being an AJ simp, but how him and AJ specifically would go about dividing attention between each other. I think at this stage Wilder would probably be okay with it. He wouldn't be overly happy, but we know he didn't have huge purses before.
I mean, he still can't stand Fury, though, to be fair. Wilder.
They have like a love-hate relationship.
No,
it depends what kind of... they all like...
Sometimes, though, when enough money's on the table, you'll be surprised.
See, when they were in Saudi Arabia and he saw them and Fury went up to him and he was like screaming "Bomb Squad" and he was kind of cordial, but then he came out after and he's like, "Oh, I absolutely hate the guy, but I was in Saudi Arabia, so I wasn't going to do anything."
But I mean, I actually think AJ will probably be one of the hardest people to get on board with this because
he's the biggest draw and
he's been a star for so long, and to be on the undercard.
Well, we'll see what happens. I would just say Tyson Fury, when he's been asked about it, he seems to be non-committal, to say the least.
He's non-committal to everything. I don't know how he ever got married.
Well,
he's got about 8 kids. Right, moving on very quickly because we've got to wrap up. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I should just mention this. UCAD have suspended Conor Benn.
Good.
As we know, he failed 2 VADA tests, but he did pass the UCAD test. So this ban seems a bit retrospective. Conor Benn has said he remains free to fight outside of the UK, which is technically true. However, because the British Boxing Board of Control have suspended his licence, they're also saying to other commissions across the world that they should uphold what they do and ban him, and it would appear that a lot of commissions have done, certainly in America. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I mean, Conor Benn, I really do think now you've got to get that so-called 270-page document which you said will prove your innocence. You really need to get that out there and try and prove your innocence.
You're making the assumption that he's got it and that it's real and that it proves his innocence.
Well, that's what you're making.
There's quite a few big assumptions.
You're making some big leaps. And America can ban him because America doesn't give a toss about Conor Benn. They don't care about. He doesn't do anything for them.
Well, he needs to get a swerve on, man. He's not fought since April 2022. He's 26. He's approaching his prime, you would say, as
for someone of that weight class.
This is just starting to envelop him, man.
I think this is good news. I genuinely think this is good news because what we need to see more in the sport of boxing is people collaborating and pooling their resources and working together. We see too much segregation between the different boxing associations and all the rest of it, and it will make people less likely to cheat if they know that they can't just swerve it and go to another territory, especially the biggest territories like America and Britain.
Yeah, I think people could look at it from one side, and I think Conor Benn will, that it's harsh because if you look at the past and other people that have failed drugs tests or whatever, I mean, the sport is littered with it and haven't had the same kind of punishments. I think he'll feel hard done by in that sense, and I think he'll probably go rogue, maybe a bit angry, and go into his heel turn. However, I think maybe it is a good point to make an example out of him in a way and completely blacklist him off, make it such a big case that now future examples of fighters trying to do it will probably think twice. They'll be like, oh shit,
so long as it's consistent for everybody else as well from here on in.
But that's what I mean, but then they need the one big case to make it. But it is harsh.
I've got to, as my position as chair, cut you off there. Listen, guys, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the show. Hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Don't forget, we're on next week, so you got to catch us. We're going to be previewing all the big news that's coming out in the boxing world. We'll be covering it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And once again, see you guys next week.